one of the things you see coming up more often on the left is that they'll just say that stats or facts are just nutty or crazy or racist or evil, and so we should just discredit them. Instead of looking at the facts and seeing if they're true or not, there are certain facts that we're not allowed to listen to. And a great example of this is this clip you'll see from The View analyzing this Tucker Carlson piece. Now, what Tucker's saying is he's citing statistics that show that all these studies show that when men make more than, or when women make more than men, they tend to not favor marrying men that make less than them. So, for example, if you're a woman who's making tons of money, really successful, it's hard to find someone that you want to marry because there seems to be something that shows a lot of women don't want to marry men that are less financially successful than them. And he's talking about this in the greater context of all these problems that men are facing in America today, like increased suicide rates and things like that. And so he's saying his big point is he's talking about how families dissolving is a bad thing, and we need to go back to focusing on marriage because that's best for not only men and women, but for children as well. And so he's citing facts that are true that say one of the things comes with increased economic growth and increased success of women, that it's actually leading to a decline in marriage. Now, nowhere is he saying that we shouldn't seek for increased economic participation of women or increased success. He's just citing here's something that's happened that's negative as a result of that we're going to eventually have to deal with. So let's run the clip and you can see exactly what Tucker's saying.
After study has shown that when men make less than women, women generally don't want to marry them. Now, maybe they should want to marry them, but they don't. Over big populations, this causes a drop in marriage, a spike in out-of-wedlock births, and all the familiar disasters that inevitably follow. More drug and alcohol abuse, higher incarceration rates, fewer families formed in the next generation.
It's like,
That's the response you get. Whoopi could barely contain our laughter. The audience is very amused, right? They don't care, right? They don't care about the fact that these are real problems. All that matters to these people is it's a competition, and it's between men and women. They're adversaries, and so women doing better is a good thing. They don't care if problems arise as a result of that. Now, look how they'll go on to speak as how this is because they feel that way. Then they feel that Tucker bringing up these problems is obviously him saying, I want women kept in the closet, keep them in the kitchen. I don't want them to economically do well. But that's not what he's saying at all. He's just saying, like, look, here's some problems that arose. Let me give you an example. You could say, look, with economic growth came unsuspecting problems. For example, we now have obesity as a problem in America. I should know, right? But that's not saying, oh, so now I'm advocating no economic growth. It's just saying, look, we have to deal with problems as they arise. Here's one problem we have. As women start outpacing men in earnings, they seem not to be interested in men that earn less. But these women think that that problem's laughable. And they think that the clip in general is laughable, where it's talking about how difficult men are having it with things like increased suicide and things like that. See, to women and to feminists, you could never talk about anything negative that's happened towards men, because men are the evil, tyrannical patriarchy, and they deserve everything that's coming to them. Let's see how the ladies on The View react.
It reminds me of when they blame women for pregnancy, as if he had nothing to do with it. You know, she's pregnant because of her, not him.
But that's not what Tucker's saying. Tucker's not saying we should blame women for this phenomenon. He's just saying here's a problem that's arisen. Again, they're conflating the fact that he's addressing this problem, which, notice, they'll never go on to address the factual nature of that. That is a problem that exists. Statistics and facts show that. But instead of saying, no, that's not true, they're just like, oh, this is nutty, he's attacking women. That's not what he's doing at all. And it's a clever way to get out of addressing the issue in the first place.
There's a woman in the audience, she's like, what?
Let's take it
with the orange dress.
to his initial claim that women, let's start with the fact that he says women don't want to be with men who make less than them.
See, that's clearly nonsense. Whoopi thinks that's nonsense. Remember this face at the end of this. We'll see how that works out at the end of this segment.
Well, everybody I know, all the women I know practically all make more money than their husbands.
I'd be thrilled to make more than my husband.
Women cheer this. I thought it was about equality. I thought we wanted men and women to make the same. Now it's something to laugh, or it's something to applaud when women make more than men. Imagine the opposite of this being said. Well, all the men I know make more than their wives. Woo! No, of course not. So, and again, I have no problem. If women based on their merits, which my interpretation of the effects, it seems to be that it has nothing to do with ability. It has to do with job choices as to why it turns out that usually women make less than men. Like, they tend to be more interested in people, go into fields that don't have as much upward mobility, such as nursing, whereas men tend to be interested in things and go into fields such as engineering that happen to have upward mobility and increased scale so they can make more money. They also happen to do more overtime and things like that. It has nothing to do with ability. Women are every bit as intelligent and capable as men on the average. It's just the choices they make. But if women end up outpacing men, like in things like academia and earning potential, I have no problem with that. That's great, as long as it's not based on the fact that they're the group women, right? It's just based on, as individuals, on average, it just turns out women do better. That's absolutely fine. I have no problem with that. That's great. We should have a meritocracy where the people that are the best at each job end up having more success. So I have no problem with that. But just I just find this double standard to be kind of laughable where, all the women I know are doing better than the men. Woo! Okay, like, good for them, I guess. But you would be appalled if men had the exact opposite reaction, if men were doing better than the women.
I will say this before we get into that topic, because I anchored a show with Tucker. I sat at a table just like I do with you ladies, and this is so different than the Tucker that I know. Anyone that's worked closely with him, like, he was so supportive of my career and wanted me to succeed. He's also a big proponent of marriage and families. That is probably the biggest thing for him. But he was always great to anyone he worked with, people of different backgrounds, immigrants. Yeah. He loved helping them out. So if you know Tucker personally, you would say he has a heart of gold.
I don't see what good that...
Now, isn't that funny? This seems strange to her. He was always nice to women and immigrants and all these people, so it seems strange that he would say something. Well, could it be that you're just interpreting it wrong? That Tucker's not citing these statistics to say, oh, we need to attack women. He's just addressing a problem that's occurring. It's okay to be totally supporting of immigrants, women, people of color, etc., and still say, oh, and there's problems with these other communities with rural white men as well. It's okay to have both of those arguments simultaneously. I care about inner city problems, even though I'm not someone who's ever lived in the inner city. Most of those people aren't the same race as me. But I still care about those problems. Me bringing them up isn't me saying, oh, so you don't care about white men? Of course not. That's absurd. You could care about all these problems. Again, this woman is confused. It's like she won't allow it. She can't process, like, well, wait a minute. Everything I know about this guy says he's not a sexist, says he cares about women, says he cares about families. So how could he be citing these evil anti-feminist statistics? How can he be going after women like this? Well, because he's not going after women. He's addressing a problem that needs addressed. Let's see what the rest of the ladies say.
Is when he's promoting this bad stuff to millions of people.
I'm just saying...
You see, having statistics is promoting bad stuff. Now, this is from people on the left, by the way, that would consider themselves, they're pro-science, right? Oh, those Trump supporters, they're anti-science. Yet here they're saying, we have to ignore statistics, we have to ignore science. All the studies have done that have shown that it turns out that it seems like, on average, a lot of times women who make more than men don't want to marry those men. That's promoting bad stuff by bringing up that statistic? How is that even possible? Again, it's because they can't argue the factual basis of it. If they really were concerned about a healthy society and equality between men and women, they would say, okay, here's an issue. We don't think that's a reason to stop women's participation in the workforce or encouraging them from having upward mobility and making more money. But yeah, this is certainly an issue. It's something we need to look at. That's what Tucker's doing. But they're just like, no, we can't look at that because they're afraid that the answer might be, oh, it's not this evil, tyrannical patriarchy that we've all been led to believe by feminists.
It goes against the person that I know.
He's just doing this for ratings and theater and.
If you watch the whole clip, which I did, it was like a kind of, because I watched it a few times, it's like kind of a convoluted way of talking about big government versus small government and like the role of economics. But the messaging on this is confusing to me because is the patriarchy in charge and men are controlling everything? Are we as women controlling everything because we're making so much money? Like all the messages are confusing, and I didn't follow this clip at all.
That's because that's not what Tucker's saying. Tucker's never made the argument that the patriarchy's in control of everything. That's the ridiculous feminist argument that wants to rewrite history as if it's always been a competition between men and women, and history is just a series of decisions of men doing whatever they can to keep women down. That's not the case. History is very complicated. The majority of history of the human species has been men and women fighting admirably against the overall crazy difficulties of life. mostly from things like nature, like just trying to live together, to not starve to death, to have shelter, to raise families. And there were roles that were determined to be the most successful, where women seemed to be more people in the taking care of like housekeeping stuff, raising children, whereas men seemed to be more providers. As time goes on, we're gradually shifting away from that. That's fine. That's a good thing. I'm for equality of opportunity for all genders, all sexes, all races, etc. So I think that everyone should have equal opportunity. If women choose to go out in the workplace and men choose to be more the, raise children at home, that's great. I don't have a problem with that. But along with a shift, there comes problems. And we need to be able to discuss those problems because we want the society to be better for men, women, children, everyone. The idea that she's saying that the Tucker's comments are convoluted here is he's not saying that this is women's fault. It's the they're having trouble understanding this because to them it's just this conflicted relationship between men and women are adversaries. To them, they're like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Is he saying that yes, men are evil and they control everything, yet this is still somehow happening? Or actually it's women that are evil or control everything? He's not saying either. Those are both childish, oversimplified views of the world. He's saying that we've had changes. There's things that are occurring where now we're starting to see women make more and more money. And we're starting to see all this advocacy for women, which is good. He's not saying that's a bad thing. But he's saying now we're starting to see tons of problems that are coming up as a result of it. The end result of those problems are suicide rates for men going through the roof and other things. So we need to address these problems. His big thing, which is, I agree 100%, is that marriage is important. And having children in stable families is important. And he's saying, here's one thing that's happened is women make more money. It's harder for them to find a mate because they tend to want someone at least on the same pay scale as them. And this is true, study after study show that they're very less likely to marry someone who earns less than them. And so that could be one of the factors that's leading to a decrease in marriage. That's not saying screw those women that are making more or screw them for not choosing to marry men that make less than them. That's not saying that at all. It's just saying this is something that's happening. We'll have to deal with this. And these people can't deal with it because to them, it's a total adversarial relationship. So, if he's saying that this is a problem, then he must think that it's a problem women are making money. Therefore, he's trying to keep women down. No, that's not what's going at all. That's how they look at it. They look at it as, we want men to be kept down so women can make more money. That's why they think that when someone else is just making a claim, it's like, I don't care which side's doing better. It's not an adversarial relationship. I want things to be better for everyone, but here's the problem. They automatically assume he has to be either choosing, I want men to do good and women to do bad, or women to do good and men do bad, because that's how they view the world.
But I will say that it was a pleasure working with Tucker Carlson on my behalf as well.
I think that there's this idea that, to keep women down that's going on in the country.
But Sonny, you said you had
another
friends.
aspect of it.
I don't know. It looked like Looney Town to me.
See, there you have them say, see, it's because they want to keep women down. No, that has nothing to do with it. You, presumably, if you think that, it's probably because you want to keep men down. And so you assume anyone who's just citing statistics must be like you and be playing for the other team, when that's clearly not the case. Now, this lady, remember Whoopi's face back there? Let's start with this initial claim. He thinks that women wouldn't want to date or marry people that make less than them. That's so absurd. This woman, she seems to be an intellectual juggernaut. She's had very important things to say the whole time. She obviously agreed with Whoopi. Let's see how this ends.
But I will say this, he seemed real nutty to me.
But Sonny, you said you had friends that didn't want to marry men that made less than them.
I have had friends that, make a lot of money and don't necessarily want a guy that isn't ambitious.
Oh, well, look at that. So then the end of the clip, they basically proved Tucker's point in the first place. Now, he was evil for saying that. Notice how she puts it. They don't want to marry men that are less ambitious. Oh, so according to these feminists, if men are making less than women, it's because they're less ambitious. But if women are making less than men, it's because the tyrannical patriarchy is keeping them down. Do you see the hypocritical double standards here? And at the end of the video, they end up totally agreeing with Tucker, yet it's okay for them to have that stance. Those women that don't want to marry women or men that are making less than them, that's empowering. Those men just must not be ambitious, and it's the rights of those women. I don't agree that the men might just be less ambitious, but I agree. It is empowering for women to marry and choose the mates that they want. I absolutely agree. As does Tucker, I'm assuming. Tucker's just saying, here's a problem, there's less marriage going on, we should find ways to solve that. And they're saying he's some evil bigot for suggesting that. And then they say, let's look at that claim. Pushing that's evil. And then they say the same thing at the end. Well, yeah, I have friends that, that's true. But still, Tucker's an evil bigot for bringing it up. So just another example of, you know, this feminist mindset and the mainstream media, like groups like this in general, how it's absolutely ridiculous. They try to bring people down and don't want to debate facts. I will never, like, you've seen me, like, for example, when Don Lemon came out and said, actually, I think white men are the biggest danger as far as, like, violent attacks or something. I didn't come out and attack him for saying that. I said if he's discussing statistics that show that more violent crimes committed by white men, he has every right to discuss those statistics. Facts aren't racist. How you interpret them or how you choose to use them can be. But they have no evidence that Tucker was trying to use this fact to go after women. His point was quite clear. He was discussing how, in fact, he was kind of discussing leftist principles. I watched the entire clip. He's talking about how, you know, we said when inner city communities were having drug problems and suicide problems with men that it was the role of leftist government, big government. But now we see, because Democrats controlled those areas, but now we see those same problems occurring in rural America. And it's the exact opposite. The race of the people is different. It's usually controlled by smaller government, Republican type people. So maybe there's other problems going on. So we should start to look for what those problems were. He thinks one of those problems is a lack of marriage. Yet, suddenly, he doesn't say anything anti-women in that whole speech. He's just citing statistics. And his entire point, it's not to go after women, it's to go after the declining institution of marriage. So, again, it just shows, and remember this when you're talking, you see the same thing applied over and over for issues on the left, like if you're talking about immigration. They don't want to cite statistics. You just saw this the other day, that there was an article that said that basically Pelosi said she didn't want to discuss ICE and border control statistics. Clearly, it wasn't the truth. They don't want the facts, right? And that's the same people that will beat their chest and say, oh, the Republicans are anti-science, they're terrible. They don't want to talk facts on transgender. They don't want to talk facts on, like, the declining success of boys, how girls are far outpacing them in elementary, high school, and now college. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about, like, all sorts of these things. It's just, shut up, you're evil, right? And that's the problem. That's, again, you see a problem with Pelosi saying that the wall's immoral. It's hard to have a discussion when one side's saying the other side is evil and immoral. So they won't even look at these obvious statistics. So the end result, what Tucker's trying to address is, like, how men, women, and children have it worse because of the declining institution of marriage and things like all kinds of problems such as men committing suicide at high rates. They don't care about that. They want that to be ignored because it doesn't go with their narrative. They're not going to look at those facts at all. And meanwhile, they'll tell you that you're a terrible person if you want to address them. So, all right, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe. The button will be down on the bottom left at the end of the video, and I'm going to be putting out more videos daily. So, all right, thanks a lot, and have a good one.